These are the potato trimmings from the potatoes, from the chips that I made the other day. Never wanting to waste anything, I'm going to have a go and turn them into gnocchi. Potatoes need to be really dry for gnocchi, so what I've done, because normally what I would do is I'd cook them in their skins whole in boiling water, and then I would peel them that way, and therefore they become a lot drier and they make better gnocchi. I can't do that with these because I've already peeled them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get rid of as much moisture as possible. I've cooked them in some simmering salted water, drain them and put them out on this tray, and I'm going to give them a bit of a crush with the potato masher, which will break them open, and then more moisture can come out of them as they cool and dry. So just gently, and then I'm going to let them go cold, and then I'm going to add some egg and some flour. I'm going to turn them into gnocchi, and should hopefully work out just quite well. I just don't like wasting anything. Even though I would have just put them on the compost, I still think I'm throwing usable food away, so I don't like that. So I'm just going to give them a quick mash on here, and steam as much moisture out of them as possible, and then be nice and dry, ready for the gnocchi. Gnocchi is essentially potato dumplings. I'm calling them gnocchi, but lots of different countries have a similar, I'm making a right mess of this, have a similar recipe. That should be fine. They'll cool down nicely, clear up the mess, and then we'll come back when I am turning them into gnocchi and rolling them out. So I have, the potatoes have been cooled, and I have put them through a ricer, which is one of these, which is like a fancy potato masher, makes the potato really fine, really quite easy. If you haven't got one of those, regular masher is fine. Just don't mash the potato too much, because you don't want it to go too gloopy. So, and then I've mixed there was about a kilo of potatoes, so I've mixed that with 2 eggs and 4 heaped tablespoons of flour and made a dough. This is the dough. I've already made some gnocchi because I didn't want to have to make 2 batches in front of the camera. So roll it out into a long sausage using a little bit of flour just so it doesn't stick. Like that. The water is boiling already, and it's got a little bit of oil in. I just find that it helps stop the gnocchi from sticking together. Italians don't use oil in water when they're cooking gnocchi or pasta. They're just a lot better than I am. I don't particularly use oil when I cook pasta in the water, just with gnocchi. They're a little bit sticky, so and the tendency to want to stick together into a big clump. So just a little bit of being a little bit careful. So then you get a fork, dip it in your flour, and then you're going to make marks on top of the gnocchi like that. And what that does is that means that the sauce that you're going to cook with the gnocchi sticks into those grooves and sticks to the gnocchi. Like that there. I've got some pesto in the fridge, so that's what I'm going to have, and some pecorino. So that's what I'm going to have with the gnocchi. If I hadn't got that, I would have get some herbs from the garden, and I'd melt some butter in a pan, and I'd fry the herbs in the butter, and then I'd add the cooked gnocchi to that, and that's how I'd have a nice simple sauce. But there we go. Right, so gnocchi now into the pan, turn it up, and they're going to be ready when they start floating to the surface. Well, I normally give it a minute. They'll come to the surface, then I'll give it a minute, just to make sure that they're hot all the way through and completely cooked. Drop them through the oil, then you know that they're coated. That. And obviously it takes a while to add the gnocchi into the pan, so if you take them out when the first ones come right to the top, then the ones at the bottom aren't going to be cooked. So you just have to kind of play it by ear. probably overloading the pan too much, but fine, one fault. Not bad. So, then in the bowl, I've got some of the pesto and a little bit of oil just to loosen it. And when the gnocchis are ready, I'm going to pull them out of there and put them straight into the bowl. Give it a mix around, and then grate the cheese on, and then that'll be it. So it's quite a quick thing. Yeah, if you're making gnocchi, you can't roll them out into the shape they want, ready, and then cook them the next day. You need to roll them out, form them, and then cook them. Because they tend to go really sticky if you leave them overnight and toughen up a little bit. So it's best to make them and cook them straight away. And depending on the size of your pan and how strong your stove is, you don't really want to be cooking more than 2 portions at once. So these are looking like they're okay. I don't think they're going to break up. I think all over Europe there are lots of different recipes and lots of different cultures and lots of different countries that have their own potato dumpling recipe. I'll move my spider away so you can see. So they are now all coming up to the top. Not breaking up, which is a good sign. So, and there we go. So heat off, gnocchi out. And we'll put some more pesto on top. Give it a spin around so everything gets coated. And into a bowl. Pecorino cheese on top. And there we go, done. Easy tea from leftovers and things I had around the house. You can cook the gnocchi and let them go cold and then heat them up by frying them. You can do that, but you can't really form the gnocchi and then leave it hanging around for a couple of hours before you cook it. Kind of felt that last bit was a little bit rushed, so I will be a little bit more, try and make it a little bit more understandable. Yes, understandable. This is the gnocchi dough that I made, and it started to go really soft and really tacky. And the longer you leave it, the softer and tacky it will go. So you can't make the gnocchi, keep it for an hour somewhere, and then cook it, because it'll start to go like that. It loses all its firmness and starts to go not very nice, just not as good consistency, and then you need to start adding more flour, which is not what you want to do with gnocchi. It's basically the bare minimum amount of flour and egg to combine it all together, and as soon as you start adding more flour, it starts to toughen it up, which is not what you want. So I hope that makes things a little bit more clearer. So you can mash the potatoes, but as soon as you start adding the flour and the egg, then you need to start making the dough, shaping the dough, and then cooking the dough and eating it. But you can, once you've cooked it, you can let them go cold, and they will keep in their shapes, and then you can keep them for a few days, and then you can warm them up. You can either toss them in a little bit of oil in a pan, cook them through that way, or you can reheat them through the oil that way. That will be fine, but you can't. That dough is going to be no good tomorrow. It's certainly going to be no good in a couple of hours. It's getting a little bit tacky now, so I need to be making some more gnocchi. So I hope that makes sense. It kind of does to me. Probably won't do it to anyone else, but there we go. So the last batch of gnocchi are cooking, and these are the ones that I'm going to cook and then cool down, and I'll use again later. So I'm just going to put them on a tray tray's got a little bit of oil on to stop it from sticking to the tray, and then we'll just let them go cold and then keep them in the fridge until I want to use them. And then we can reheat them any way you like, back through a little bit of water or through some oil and sauce in a pan, whichever way you like. But that's that. I will add, as today's bit of knowledge, there is a habit in the UK of adding oil to the water that you cook pasta in, and no one seems to know why we have that habit. I will now tell you why we have that habit. After the Second World War, fuel there wasn't a lot of coal in the country, and we were on rations, so we were encouraged to use the least amount of fuel as possible when cooking and heating our homes. So what that meant was that they used the bare minimum amount of water in pans to heat up things and cook them. If you cook pasta in as little water as possible, what tends to happen is it starts to bubble and foam and spill over. If you add oil to that water, it stops it from foaming and spilling over, and that's why in the UK we have a habit of wanting to add oil into pasta water. You don't need to if you use lots of water and a small amount of pasta. It doesn't foam up in the same way, but because we use a small amount of water, then it used to foam up, and that's why in the UK we add oil to pasta water. There we go, today's lesson. So these will go cold, and then I'm going to bake them in something else during the week. I've got a few other things that I need to use up, so I'll use those and something else as a base, like a pasta type base, I kind of think, which would be nice. I've got some ragu and some bits of vegetables and small bacon, and I've got some chorizo sausages that I made myself that all kind of need using up, and some onions, and I'll just combine it all together and then bake it in the oven like a pasta bake, and it'll be lovely. I think I'll probably do a video for it.